So, you're running a business, or maybe you've just got this killer idea for one. There's a language you absolutely have to speak. And I'm not talking about marketing buzzwords. I'm talking about the language of cost. Getting this right is so much more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about strategy, it's about survival, and at the end of the day, it's about winning.
It sounds like such a basic question, right? What does it really cost to run this thing? But trust me, digging deep into that answer, that's where the magic happens. Because when you can answer that, you go from just kind of guessing about your business's health to truly knowing. And that shift, that's a total game changer. Okay, so why do we need to get so obsessed with this? Well, it's simple. Understanding your costs is the engine that drives every single important decision you're going to make. It's how you plan for next year, how you control what's happening right now, and how you figure out everything from what to charge people to which products are even worth your time. Seriously, think of it as your strategic compass. So here's our game plan. We're going to start by pinpointing your costs, just to get the language right. Then we'll build out our cost classification toolkit. After that, we'll get into understanding cost behavior, which is super interesting. And finally, we'll put it all together to start making smarter decisions. Ready? Let's do it.
All right, first up, pinpointing your costs. Before we can start analyzing anything, we've got to be on the same page. We need a shared language so we all know what we're talking about when we're trying to measure these things.
Let's kick off with a really important term, the cost object. It sounds complicated, but it's not. It's just the thing you want to know the cost of. It could be a whole department, a project, or a specific product. For this explainer, let's imagine we're a furniture company, and our cost object is one single, beautifully made wooden table. And that leads us right to the cost unit. See, if the cost object is the big project of making tables, the cost unit is just the cost of making one of them. Simple as that. It's the cost per item. Okay, now that we have those two terms down, we can really start building our toolkit.
Okay, now we get to the heart of it, the cost toolkit. I want you to think about this like having a set of different glasses. Each pair of glasses lets you look at the exact same costs, but in a totally new way, helping you answer a completely different kind of question.
And this chart right here, this is our map. It lays out a few of the main ways we can slice and dice our costs by their nature, their function, how they behave. For what we're doing today, we're going to focus on the classifications that give you the most bang for your buck in making real-world decisions.
So the most fundamental split, the first pair of glasses we're putting on, is direct versus indirect costs. A direct cost is easy. You can physically trace it to one unit. For our table, that's the wood. You can literally point to it and say, that wood is in that table. And indirect costs, what people usually call overhead, is just as important, but it's shared. Think about the factory rent. It helps you make all the tables, not just that one specific table. Now, here's the cool thing. When you add up all of those direct costs, the wood, the paycheck for the person who actually built that specific table, maybe a royalty you pay to the designer for each one sold, you get something called the prime cost. This is your absolute, no-fluff, rock-bottom cost to create one single unit. All right, pop quiz. What about the salary for the factory's supervisor? They are absolutely essential, right? But is their pay a direct cost that you can trace to our one wooden table, or is it an indirect cost? Just take a second to think about it. Yep, you got it. It's an indirect cost. The supervisor is overseeing the creation of hundreds, maybe thousands of tables, so you can't logically tie their salary back to just one. It's a classic overhead cost that keeps the whole operation running. The key word to remember here is traceability. Can you trace it? Direct. Can't you? Indirect. Okay, let's grab the next tool from our toolkit. This one is all about understanding cost behavior. So we're not looking at what the cost is, but how it reacts when things change. It's all about watching how your costs shift as your business gets busier or slows down. So first, you've got your fixed costs. These are the expenses that stay the same in total pretty much no matter what. That monthly rent for your factory? Perfect example. You pay the exact same amount whether you make one table this month or 100 tables. The total cost is, well, fixed. But here's where it gets really interesting. We know the total rent check you write is fixed. But what happens to the slice of rent that each individual table has to pay for as you start cranking out more and more of them? Does that amount stay the same? It goes
down. And this, my friends, is the magic of what we call economies of scale. The more tables you produce, the more units you have to spread that big fixed rent payment over. That means the fixed cost per table drops, which makes each individual product cheaper for you to make from an overhead point of view. Now, on the complete flip side of a fixed cost is a variable cost. This is a cost that moves in perfect lockstep with your activity. The more tables you decide to make, the more wood you have to buy. It's a straight one-to-one relationship. Make another table, buy more wood.
And here's where we see that perfect mirror image of fixed costs. With variable costs, the total amount you spend goes up and up as you make more, but the cost per unit, so the cost of the wood for just one table, stays exactly the same. Getting your head around this inverse relationship, how fixed and variable costs behave differently in total versus per unit, that is absolutely crucial. Okay, so we can define our costs, we know how they behave. Now for the payoff. How do we use all this to make genuinely smarter, better decisions for our business? This is where everything we've talked about really comes together. Whenever you're facing a choice, any choice, the single most important filter to use is this one. Is this cost relevant? And here's the rule. A relevant cost is any cost that will happen in the future and will be different depending on which path you choose. Anything else, any cost from the past or any future cost that's the same no matter what you do, is non-relevant. You have to train yourself to ignore it. It's just noise clouding your judgment. And that brings us to the biggest, most common, most painful trap in business, the sunk cost. This is money that is already gone. Poof, you spent it. You can't get it back. And because it's a past cost, it has exactly zero relevance to any future decision. You have to learn to ignore it, no matter how much it hurts to think about the money you already spent. And finally, there's one last cost we have to consider, and it's a tricky one because it will never ever show up on a spreadsheet. It's opportunity cost. It's simply the value of what you gave up. By choosing to use your factory and your people to make product A, you gave up the chance to make product B. That potential profit from product B, that's the opportunity cost of choosing A. It forces you to think about the road not taken. So there you have it, a practical, no-nonsense toolkit for seeing your business costs in a whole new light. We've talked direct versus indirect, fixed versus variable, and that all-important filter of relevant versus sunk costs. So the only real question left is, now that you have these new lenses, what's the first cost in your business, or even in your life, that you're going to look at completely differently?